that uses violence as, the last ditch effort at solving a problem. But it is the very last resort, okay, of solving a problem is violence. But I can remember it goes back. I had problems. Let's see. When was the first time I got in a fight? I remember I had a ball kicked out of my hand in second grade in Santa Cruz. I was Branson 40 Elementary then. And this kid broke my finger. It was the only bone in my body I've ever broken. Second grade, kicked the rubber ball, the red rubber ball we all know, out of my hand. And I had to, but I didn't act violently. But I saw some incidents that turned me off, the blood and stuff. One kid punched another kid, and he's got a bloody nose, and there's blood dripping on the steps of the schoolhouse. And, it's a real turnoff. So from a very early age, I didn't like bloodshed. But so I was really a pretty peaceful kid. But in junior high, we're talking 7th, 8th grade, I was living in Santa Cruz Mountains there, Felton, the town of Felton. I went to San Lorenzo Valley Junior High. They call it middle school now. And my family had gotten this new dog I was totally enthralled with. It was Bear. He was a purebred German Shepherd, beautiful animal, 6 months old. And my sister was walking him downtown Felton. And we got Highway 9 riding right through Felton. And you get these big semi-trucks. But, it was totally irresponsible. It was off-leash, and he ran across the street. And he got run over by a semi-truck, ran right over his head. And then this kid I know from school, this kid I didn't associate with because he was known to be a little weird and freaky, but he was like, "Oh, cool, man." He came up to me, and he didn't know. I mean, this was my dog. I don't know if he knew. If he knew it was my dog, I think he wouldn't have said what he said, but he thought it was cool that his brains had squirted across the road. And I just started beating the hell out of this kid. And it was my dog. I was just, freaked out and just... But, I did hit him in the face. He was wearing a down jacket. They were very popular back then, and I just started beating him up. Dean Drennan, to this day, I remember his name. And we're going back, oh my God, we're going back 46 years maybe? Yeah, about that. But there was other times, I got attacked once by a friend, and I had to turn that on him and smash his head into the concrete. Oh, but one time, see, I learned my lesson about picking fights when I was in junior high. Another time was that I thought I was a tough guy. In fact, the clique I hung out with, we called ourselves hard guys and thought we were pretty tough. We liked to show off for each other, And these guys, they'd call each other out to the football field after school. And this one time I picked a fight with this kid. He was actually in 7th grade. I was in 8th grade. For no reason. I mean, the kid looked at me sideways, but I thought it was a good reason. Hey, you know what? I'll call this kid out. He thinks he's so tough, and he looked at me sideways. So, I'm going to pick a fight with this kid I had no, fault with. I had no reason to pick a fight with this kid, but he ended up, we went to the football field after school, and he took my challenge, and he got the best of me. He got me in a headlock, and, that was that. That's when I kind of learned my lesson, that you don't just pick a fight for no reason, okay? That's why all this WWE, all this stuff is phony. It has to be, because if people really fight, I mean, they go crazy. And they gotta have a really good reason to hate somebody. So all these boxing matches and all this stuff, it doesn't really reveal the kind of hatred people have for each other. Another episode of Crime Files. I mean, this jealous guy, a jealous husband, he beat this guy to a pulp. He just literally just beat his head in with his fists. And, it just makes you think about the potential when you let the dog all the way off the leash. A man has incredible potential to be violent, and you've got to make a deliberate attempt not to be violent. But, I thought, I had covered the bases on my, violent past, but, the only time I got in trouble for it and charged was, of course, and it wasn't I don't have a violent past. I mean, come on. You've heard, I've spilled it. I've said where I fell violently in my life. And one time I called my dad out because I told him, I said, look, I'm your only son, and it's my job, is my head, that's what I felt. And I just felt like his attitude was too intimidating. So I was 22 years old, and and when I called him out, he's a big guy. He was 6'2", I'm 5'10", and he had at least 60 pounds on me probably or more. But big guy, you don't want to challenge this dude, and I did. He's a former Marine, and he boxed in the Marine Corps. He's a badass. I never saw anybody stand up to this guy. I was the first one I ever saw stand up to him. But I did. I just said, look, your violent attitude is going to die with you. I looked him straight in the face. And, I'm not going to carry it on. And he chased me out of the house. He was just so mad. He just, he just snapped. And I ran around the corner of the house, and I grabbed a, a fence post, and I just stood there and, like I was going to hit him if he tried to hit me. And, I mean, it was one of those things where thereafter, I mean, our relationship changed, but I think we both had a lot more respect for each other. I mean, I was sorry, and he was sorry, and that's the status. We're father and son. I mean, it's not, we're bonded, and we weren't going to let any, satanic influences change that. And the devil is in the detail of these kind of things. So, it was a very unpleasant situation, but our relationship changed after that. And, my dad and I used to joke. I mean, talking about joining AA, and you'd be like, we understood, I rubbed you the wrong way. And, I'm sorry, AA meant, a-hole anonymous, right, is what we both meant. So, we understood that we both had a propensity to be in a-holes. And everybody should understand that. We all have a propensity. And the only thing we could do is to make amends as soon as possible. Okay, when you catch yourself, so that somebody that you're having a problem with isn't living in your head, okay, and consuming a lot of your precious time. You want to have peace in the valley of your mind and heart and soul and spirit. Okay, so that's why you make apologies, even if you felt like the other guy was more wrong. It doesn't matter. Okay, you just have humility, and you just, go about it. That's it. Just let God do the rest. Pray for people, like loving your enemy sort of thing, and just do it. Whether you understand it or not. It's like algebra. Just do what the teacher says. Do what the tutor says, and it'll come out right. Okay? You may not understand it all at first, but later you will. And that's how it is, kind of this love your enemy thing. It's the cross that Christians must bear. Say, that's a lot. That's a lot to chew on. Yeah, it is. And it's a lot to chew on when Jesus said, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. We don't understand everything about God. We're going to be spending eternity understanding his character, his personality, his nature, her nature, their nature, our parents' nature, our owner's nature, God Almighty's nature. So, anyhow, I think I'm done talking about that subject. And I wish I were always a gentleman, always just a sweet, nice, kind guy, and I just wish everybody liked me all the time. I really do. Trump, I think, really needs to take each opportunity, as with the press, to educate the public about economics. And if there's trauma to come from raising interest rates by the Fed, he's got to enlighten people that this needs to happen in order to reverse the wealth imbalance and to allow the people that are poverty-stricken, that's seemingly without hope, that they rise above to prosperity. So this is what I would do if I was Trump. I think it would ensure his reelection. He needs to give a raise to Social Security recipients. I think that he'd be a shoo-in in 2020 if he did some liberal things. Do it because it's socially expedient. It'll get you reelected, give you more time to turn this ship around, because I know what he's trying to do. He is trying to bring prosperity to the blue-collar, working-class people. I know that's what he's a good guy. I believe that. I believe that he's letting his spiritual swayings override and overrule his political swings. So yes, and economic stuff. And I really do. I still trust Trump. I really do. And I think he wants the best for the American people. Not some of the American people, but all of the American people. And we teach best by example. So this whole immigration thing, we should not let any person come into this country, put an absolute total moratorium on all immigration until we fix our own damn problems. Get our own act together. You teach best by example. We get our own best example, be a shining light example for the rest of the world, okay? And the only way to do that is to get our own act together here, okay? That's making America great again, so that people can look up to us. Because right now, just like Trump said, we should be ashamed of homelessness in America. The exemplification of a land of milk and honey. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. This is just evil. This shows that Satan has literally taken over this country at the hands of Democrats and Republicans, at people that profess to be conservatives and profess to be liberals, at people that profess to be socialists and profess to be capitalists. They're lying to you, and the trajectory stays the same. These are these these gangs that just act like they're rival gangs. But at the end of the day, they go out and have drinks together and laugh it up, okay, as they're just taking the people and just stealing your wealth. And they got a critical mass of well-heeled people that are status quo establishmentarians that go along with it, and they're minions that are fighting for their gangster, both sides of this thing. You understand? I mean, it's devious plan. It's very diabolical, evil genius, right? But at the end of the day, they're all evil because they're on the highway to hell. So how smart can you be if you're evil? So, no, they're not that smart. Yeah, Trump needs to educate people about what's caused our problems, how and why the 2008 bailout was wrong, and how it was antithetical to true capitalism. He needs to educate the public on crony capitalism, and tell them, look, there's going to be pain. There's going to be pain if we're going to extricate ourselves from the maws of the money masters of misery. There's going to be pain if we're going to set the captives free, the American people, the American worker. If we're going to have political and social and economic harmony and cohesion, unity, then, that we're going to have to get serious about it. Because what we've had in America is certainly not true capitalism. Yeah, I've talked about how I don't understand men that want to get involved with your wife. They want to get into a troubled marriage that's going through some problem. They have what's called a messiah complex. I was trying to put my finger on it, but if you look that up, you'll see these kind of guys that I'm gonna fix a little lady where you failed, mister. I don't care that she's still married to you. Just says she's ready to divorce you, and she wants me, and you know, and it's like picking on, like, lion would pick on the weak one in a herd, right? They say, well, this one's got a problem here, so I'm going after this one, right? So these are the kind of guys that do it, and I just don't understand it, because even as a teenager, okay, as a drunken teenager, okay, 17, 18 years old maybe, two of my good friends were out surfing. I was at my house. I was emancipated. And I had both their girlfriends with me. We're talking it up and getting drunk. One thing led to another. Next thing you know, we're in my waterbed naked and fooling around. And, and they wanted what do you call it? A menage a trois, I guess, And it's like, wait a minute, you know what? Those are my friends, and I'm not a traitor. I'm not a betrayer. I mean, I may not be a man's man exactly, because I like women a lot, but I'm not going there. I'm not doing this thing. And I was so glad, even at 17, I had enough integrity to turn down the opportunity to sleep. And these weren't my friends' wives. These were my friends' girlfriends. I wasn't going to do it. Okay? So you can understand why I don't understand. Men, full-grown men that want your wife, okay? I don't get that. I'm not going there. Blows and disgrace are a lot. Read what King Solomon said about these things. Okay, nothing makes a guy angrier, okay, than hitting that jealousy chord, okay, because that's going to set him off, okay? And I mean, there's a lot of dead guys out there at the hands of a jealous husband. It arouses his fury, like King Solomon says. And just stay away from a married woman until she's thoroughly divorced, okay, and hubby's out of the picture. Let it play itself out. Don't inject yourself into somebody else's troubled marriage, okay? You're going to end up with big problems. You're going to be sorry. I promise you'll be sorry you did. Steve Quayle, I kind of like him a lot. He is a bit of a nut, but, at least according to the simpleton secular standards, I would say. But then again, I'm a bit of a nut, too, compared to those same standards. But he goes off into this demonic, fallen angel, all this stuff. And you know what? I mean, why get into, splitting hairs over this stuff? We know that there's evil forces that hate all humanity, because they're not created in the image and likeness of God. They're created ugly, as a metaphor, inside their soul and heart. And that's not a good thing. Am I the only one that thinks Nancy Pelosi might be on drugs? Have you noticed that woman? There's something wrong there. I mean, they're probably legal pharmaceuticals, pharmakia, sorcery-like drugs. But I mean, what would this woman be like without her drugs? One has to wonder. Maybe she'll come to her senses. But listening to Nick Begich, he was a guest on the Alex Jones show, guest host, and he apparently either never read Adam Smith's book, The Wealth of Nations, or he just didn't agree with Adam Smith that every nation's single greatest resource, single greatest asset, and an asset is a resource, is a willing worker.